Okay, for part 2 in the series of integrating UMA into Game Creator, I wanted to go through the first steps of creating our character creator interface, so we can use the blend shapes to change our character. I'm not going to do all of them, just a couple of them as an example. We can see that we have our character set up. I've just added the canvas here. I'm not going to go into how to set up the canvas because there are other tutorials available for that, and that would take up too much time. I just did want to show that here we want to have it set to render mode screen space overlay for one of our scripts later on to work correctly. Okay, so if I press play now, you can see that we're going to have our character, our UMA character is going to be rendered next to our canvas. So just give that a minute. Okay, so we have a character and our canvas. One thing you notice is that last time we set up our character so that he's animating and controllable. We don't want that, so that's going to be one of our first steps. The other thing is that our character, we're going to be changing the gender of the character. So if you go back here and you remember last time we had the human male DCS, we're going to also change that to female DCS, and we need to give the female DCS some clothing. So let's give her perhaps some hair, and let's give her some sport pants and tank top, and maybe some shoes. There we go. Okay, it doesn't matter which shoes, I'll just give her those. Okay, so now she's going to be clothed when we change the gender to female. So the next thing that we want to do is under player, I'm going to create a new empty object and call that trigger. Okay, and in trigger we're going to add a component from game creator, call that trigger, and we're just going to leave that as on start. So then we'll add an action, and our action is going to be under character, change property, and you'll see that the character it's already set to player is controllable. The value we want that to be no. So now our character is not going to be wandering off while we're trying to make changes. While we're at it, we can go into our canvas and create a button. Go under Game Creator UI button. And this button, we're just going to call this, go under text, we'll call this done. Make the button a bit bigger. So make it height of 50, and we'll change the text to be font size 30. Okay, so that should be all right. Let's just see how that looks. Looking at it from the other side. And we'll drag that onto our canvas. Right, and then move that up a bit. I'm sorry, down a bit, because that's going to be the last thing we want to do. So we want a button about right there. I'll rename the button, call it done button. And that should be okay. So what do we want the button to do? Because this is a game creator button, I can go down here and add an action. And our action is going to be the opposite. So we're going to make our character move again and change property to is controllable yes. So when we're finished, we can run around with the character. I'm not going to go into changing camera so we can follow him around or anything like that, but you could do that as well. So now our next step will be to start creating some of the buttons and the sliders to be able to change our character. The first button we want to create, again under Game Creator UI button, And this time we want to change the button, and we'll call it gender. Right. And go into the text for the button and change that as well to say gender. Okay. And again, change the size of the button, make it about 50. And change the font of our text so we can see something, make that 40. And then I'll scroll out to see where we're at with the button. And this one we want to put towards the top. Okay, so that'll be our first chance. It will be to change our gender. Because this is a game creator button, again, we can go down here and add an action. And this time our action is going to be one of the custom actions that I've created under UMA, and the action will be switch gender. Okay, and you'll notice that there's a slot here for avatar, so we want to drag in our new dynamic character creator there, so we know which UMA, we could have multiple UMAs on the screen, which one to switch gender for. Right, so if I've done everything correctly, if I press play, we should see that we can now change the gender. And the gender, as I said, is we're going from male, human male DCS to female. Oh, okay, our button's off the screen here, so I'm going to go check that. That's one of the things I have the most trouble with, is messing around with the canvas. I don't really like how canvas works, but I forgot to set the anchor. So now, if I press play, so as I was saying, this is just changing between the human male DCS and the human female DCS. So you can see now we're switching back and forth between genders, so that works. Great. So then our next step is to look at doing some sliders. And so I'm going to go into, I just noticed that these should be children of our character creator screen. And I'm going to create, under Game Creator, UI, create a slider. And this is going to be in the middle of the screen again, so I'm going to move that over here. And then give it also an anchor. There. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this. And move that one down. So we have two sliders. So slider number 1, I'm going to rename this and call it head size. Okay, and this one I'm going to rename and call it height. Okay. So again, make these the children of our canvas. And then I want to add a text to the slider, so I'm going to go to UMA. I'm going to go to Game Creator, UI, and do a localized text. Make that a child of the slider. And our text, we will call this one head size, or just head, should be good enough. And then I'm going to make this into font size number 40, and the height over here to 50. So that should be visible. Move that one over. And scroll in so we can see what we're doing. And make sure that that doesn't overlap, because if it does overlap, then you won't be able to click on the slider anymore. then I'm going to also make this text right justified. Let's give us a little bit more space for the slider. Right. So now the question is, what do we want to do with this slider? So we click on this one, and if you scroll down, you can see that under Game Creator, I can assign a global variable. And in this case, I already have the global variable set up here, head size. But if I didn't have that set up, I could click on Manage Global Variables. Then I would type in head size, that it is a number, and that I'm going to set the initial value to be 0.5. And I've given it a tag UMA value just to keep things organized. Okay, so I'm going to choose that here. Head size is my variable. Right. So now, when this changes, I'm going to see the change of the variable head size, and the global variables that vary between 0 and 1 with the initial value of 0.5. So just basically a right in the middle average size. Okay, so now the question is, what are we going to do with this variable? So we want to add a component, and we're going to go to Game Creator and go to Trigger, and then under Trigger we're going to be looking for variables and on variable change. So this is just going to take a look and say when does the variable change, and we're going to change, going to be looking at head size. So when the variable head size changes, we will trigger an action. So we need to create that action. So I'll click on that, and I will give this action a name and call it change head. Okay, so when we look at the action, we want to go under UMA and look for the custom actions that I've created. And in this case, we're looking for UMA head size. So one more step that's very important, and I often not forget it, is we need to drag our dynamic character avatar into the dynamic character avatar slot so we know for whom we're going to be changing the head. Okay, so I can go ahead and do the same thing for height. While I'm at it, we're going to change the global variable this time to height, which I've also just already added. And then we're going to add the component, the trigger, scroll down, Game Creator, trigger, and then again on variable change. Variables on variable change. Okay, so the global variable we're looking for here that is going to change is height. And again, we will create an action. And we're going to rename this action change height. Or you can give it any name you want. Actually, the names of the variables for the global variables are important that they're correct because that's the variable that the script uses, and I'll put that into the notes. But the name that you give this file doesn't really matter. So I'm going to add an action and go under UMA height. And again, remember to drag your avatar into the avatar slot. So one more thing that I've forgotten is I need to add some text. So I'm just going to grab the text for the head and duplicate that. Duplicate. Parent that to the height slider. rename this to height instead of head, and then move it down next to the slider. Great. So that should work. Let's see what happens when I hit play. Okay, so we're seeing that the head and the height are at 0.5, and if I change the height, the character height changes, and if I change the head slider, you can see the size of the head changes. So everything is working correctly. And then if I hit done, I can re-enable the character controller and make him walk around. So that's what I wanted to do. I'm just going to add 2 more buttons that are relatively simple to do. And so we're going to go under, again, go back to the canvas, go to Game Creator, UI, create a button. Or actually what we could just do to save some time is I'm just going to duplicate the existing done button. And so duplicate done button. I'm going to duplicate it again because I'm going to need 2 buttons. And this button I'm going to rename the save button. Save. And the other one I will rename the load button. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just be able to load and save our character. So once we've made the changes, as soon as I stop the program, they're gone. And I don't want to do that. So if I start with the save button, we still have the done functionality. First we want to change that it says done and change it to save. Okay, and then I want to look at our action, and I'm going to delete the change player controllable, add an action, and in this case the action will be the UMA action save recipe. And again, remember to drag the avatar into the avatar slot. And then finally, I'll do the same thing for the load button. Change the text to say load. Change the action on the load button from change player is controllable to our UMA action load recipe. And again, remember the avatar in the avatar slot. Good. So you can drag these into the correct parenting. So, okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to just drag these over to the side. And let's get zoom out a bit so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to drag the save button and put it in the middle, I guess, and the load button. Doesn't really matter. I mean, you can spend some time making this look a little bit prettier if you want, but that's basically what we want. Okay, so now if I click on save, I click on start, I'm sorry, we can change the head size, we can change the height, we can change our gender, and change head size and height on this character as well. And now if I click save, it'll save the file. And if I go back and make some changes here, and maybe change the gender, etc., and then click on load, it'll go back to the character that I had saved. And just to show that that actually works, you can actually stop the program, start it up again, and load our character, and you'll see that it loads the character that we've created. So, so just give that a minute. So now if I click on load, it loads the character that I've saved. So that's what we want. We want to be able to have a character creator where the player can generate their own player character and then save it and then use it in the game. So that's that for this video. In the next video, we're going to go over two more complicated cases of choosing skin tone, choosing the hair. So we're basically using slots in UMA, the language that UMA uses. And we're also going to be talking about equipping. So equipping is actually a very powerful thing in UMA, and that's actually the reason why I have decided to use UMA in my own game. I have a game where I'm going to be equipping a lot of different things and clothing and so forth, and it's part of the gameplay, so it has to work well, and trying to position the clothing on different characters and so forth is difficult, and UMA does it very well. There's a lot of nice tools. And then if I have some time, I'll also go into some of the kind of hidden functionality that UMA has, and make some actions that can trigger those as well. So I hope that this has piqued your interest and that you're interested in using UMA in your next game creator production. And please let me know if there's anything in particular from UMA, if you look at the sliders for the blend shapes that you would like to see. That there's a lot of them. I probably won't do all of them. But if there's any ones that you would particularly like to see, let me know in the comments and I can prioritize that. Okay, thank you.